everyone, it's Anne Gould here with the Video and Visibility Summit, and today I'm talking to Carole Railton, who is one of the leading body language experts in the world. She has worked with big name companies all over the globe, and I'm going to pass over to Carole because she has an amazing story. One thing you need to know that, and I'm very grateful for, is that Carole has been very ill in hospital with COVID, so she might be a little bit breathless at times, but she has agreed to come and do this summit, so I'm really pleased about that. So I'm going to go over to you, Carole, now.
Well, I'd just like to point out I'm currently number 16 in the world of body language gurus, and that's identified by globalgurus.org. So if you took the FBI guys out, I think I might be even higher. But notwithstanding, how I got into this is at 23 years of age, on my mother's deathbed, I found out that I had another sister, and I vowed there and then to never be lied to again. I took a route through working for large companies like IBM and Xerox in the Middle East, UK and Africa, before jumping off and starting my own company. So that's my history, Anne. And I've worked with clients, Coca-Cola in Serbia, chartered public accountants in Ireland and Australia, just IOD in the UK. I've been just about every discipline, I think, talking about body language or training or coaching in that area.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating, Carole. Now, also know that you have you've got a gift. You've got dyslexia. But you're also an author, and I'm wondering whether this dyslexia actually helps you with, your reading body language. So I'm going to ask you that.
Okay, yes, I think the answer is yes, because before I wrote my first book, there was a guy who wanted to write that book for me, and he followed me around for 3 days. And at the end of those 3 days, and it was supposed to be a week that he was going to follow me around, but at the end of those 3 days, what he did was say to me, "You articulate some of what you're doing, but the rest, it's just intuition." And people who are dyslexic like myself, we're very visual. It's easier for us to be good photographers and things like that than it is to be an author or take exams. So this suits me perfectly, this occupation.
Things have changed recently in that, I suppose the last 10 years technology has moved on, and we have all adopted video, and and it's absolutely an essential part of business these days. But I wonder, do you see people sort of making any mistakes with video? Because, I think that a lot of, we weren't trained to do all of this.
It's a good question because it was a telephone, really. So Alexandra Graham Bell's got a lot to answer for. It disturbed how we communicated when we couldn't see each other. A 50% at minimum is taken on visually when you meet someone. When you meet them for the first time, it can be a lot higher. So we took away that when we first got the telephone. And that's what led to telephone rage, really. And now we're at a time where we have more influencers online than any other time. And selling and talking and being on video are about influencing. So yes, it's really changed and it's come to the fore, and we must make the most of it because it's the way forward. It doesn't matter if you're in a computer system or something like that. At the moment, there are still people at the end of that system. I think it will change because I'm involved in another book now, which is about the interaction of robots and humans. But right now, it's still humans making the decisions. So putting your best foot forward is the way to go on video, and doing the best you can. And I know you've got people who are going to show everyone how to arrange themselves and that sort of thing. All I can do is tell you how you can get ready for a video, and what you might like to do during a video.
Well, that's fascinating. I mean, I think clearly that technology and AI is going to sort of bring another revolution, sort of fairly soon, I would imagine. So, what I obviously tell us about, how to get ready for video, and obviously you said about what to do while you're on video, because what's really apparent is that a lot of some people are just really good at it, and and people just flock to them, and other people might be delivering the same information, but they don't have the same impact.
Well, charisma has always ruled, and it still does. And there are only so many things you can teach about charisma. But there's probably some things that you'd like to know about how we take on body language. For instance, we this is going to look odd, but I'm touching my left eye right now. We take visual information on predominantly through the left eye. So we receive through the left eye, and we predominantly view through the right eye. So when you're talking to someone, if you were in a face-to-face situation, you'd want to be looking into their left eye. In older times, people used to say you should look at the triangle, which was the two eyes and the nose when you're trying to influence. And it was myself and a guy in the States who challenged that after being in sales and looking at how we were improving sales. And we did that by getting salespeople to talk to their clients or potential clients by looking into their left eye. There's several benefits there. One, it's not so demanding. If you want immediate reaction, then I think you should actually look at both eyes. If you're at top of a mountain and a cloud's coming down, for goodness sake, look at the both eyes and tell them to follow you and get down the mountain. But in all other situations that aren't that urgent, it's worth remembering that it is the left eye that takes on the information. So right now, because I'm dyslexic, I'm quite confused because this is a mirror image that you're watching of me. So when I touched my left eye, it looked to you like I was touching my right. So how do you replicate that in a video situation? Well, if you're talking one-to-one and you can see the other person, then it's pretty easy to do. You just look into their left eye. And again, if you're not mirrored like I am. If you're talking to a group, it's probably important that you would look around the group more slowly than I'm doing and catch each person's left eye. And it's really useful, not only in business, but at home. If you want to persuade your partner or a friend to go on a golfing holiday, for instance, and you've been debating it for years, but you always end up skiing, the thing to do is to sit down or stand, look the person in the left eye, make sure you have both feet on the ground. And that's something else that's very important for video, so that you're stable and quite literally you're grounded. That's really, really important to have both feet on the ground. Take a breath. Breath is one of the biggest indicators of body language. Take a breath, a deep breath, and then say why you want to go on the golfing holiday, looking them in the left eye. I'd love to hear from you, how successful you've been practicing this in the next couple of days. Because it's got a 70% success rate, even without the final touches, which I teach and coach. But that should get you much nearer where you want to go on holiday or what you want to do with your partner or your colleagues. So that the left eye is important, feet on the ground is important, and breath, which, as Anne's told you, I'm struggling for at the moment because I spent some time in hospital with severe COVID and I'm just getting my voice back. This isn't my normal voice, for instance. But just think about the breath. You already know that it's important. If you see someone speaking very quickly, you know that they're very excited or they're very nervous. If you see someone taking long, slow breaths, they're very relaxed, there's nothing to worry about, and they're in control. So I'm sure you've noticed those things. You don't have to ask your partner when you see them coming home from work what's going on. You know by how they're breathing and how they're looking. Yeah? Does that help for starters, Anne?
Goodness me, that's absolutely fascinating. And I didn't know that left eye. I knew that there's this thing that if you look one way, you look up one way, it means you're doing one thing, and if you look up the other, it means that you're doing the other thing. So obviously, this works. I don't know, but does it work if you're left-handed, perhaps?
Yes, I know. It's quite strange, isn't it? It doesn't matter which handed you are. Just over 80% of people react the same way. But you can test it, of course. You need to know, you mentioned that about looking left and right. Predominantly, as I say, about 80% of people will look right when they want to. Of course, I'm looking left now on your screen, but they will look right when they want to create something. Now, in my profession, I can't say people are lying. I can only say at that stage they were very creative. Yeah. So if we look up to the right, that means we're visually creating something, an image. If you were able to look at someone when you said to them, don't think of a red giraffe, you would see their eyes flick up in millisecond to create something because they haven't actually seen a red giraffe before. So you can test with your client to see if they looked up to the right or to the left. And if they look up to the left, then you know that's what you're reading when you see them. But if they are in the 80% who conform to the rule, then they will be creating something that they haven't seen before. And then if they go diagonally to the right, then it's more about them creating a sound and things like that. I don't think we should get too involved with that. It's not my speciality, it's part of what I do. But you're right, the way and where people look is really, really important, and no more so than having discovered that you should look people in the left eye if you're trying to influence. The benefit of this is if they do feel comfortable with you doing that, then they will look you in the left eye and communication speeds up. Because body language isn't in the main about deception. I like to think of it as a way of expressing yourself and it being a way of opening communications so that you can have authentic communications and get to resolutions more quickly. That's how I think of body language. Now, of course, I get paid to analyse all sorts of things, particularly CEOs when they're giving their forecast for the following year, because people like stockbrokers need to know what's going on to advise their clients. So they advise their clients where to invest. So I can actually say to a stockbroking firm, well, this CEO is committed to A, B, and C, but I wouldn't put any money on D. He was all over the place in body language terms. So it's got some very useful places to be. But I guess talking about video, we're talking about how to influence from a new standpoint on screen. That's what we're talking about. And talking about eyes, I'd just like to add, I wear glasses. These are my glasses. But it's another barrier. So if you have glasses on, you're adding another item that distances you from your clients. You've already got the screen. And what happens with the screen, of course, is that we don't take our eyes off the screen, do we? We totally focus for the time we're on the screen. And that means that we are more tired at the end of the day than if we were going into someone's office and talking and looking and seeing the picture of their kids on their desk, or a cricket bat or a hockey stick behind them. We have another way of talking to them. Yeah. So it's a very different way of communicating, but it is the modern way of communicating.
So a lot of us can sort of, have sort of fairly good guesses as far as, body language. You sort of see, things like House of Commons, and you can sort of see people and sort of make a sort of an assumption, an intuitive guess as to
Yeah.
their body language. Obviously, if we're using a screen, does that sort of same thing sort of come over? If we're going to be sort of sitting behind the desk and going to be static, is there a particular way that we need to sit, or, would you advise standing?
I would, and normally I would stand because I'm an extrovert. So when I'm on, I love being on stage. Walking up and down the stage. I mean, I did a gig at Google in London, and there were three speakers, and there were three different rooms. And the other two speakers saw the massive room and said, "Oh no, I don't want to do that." I mean, it was amazing, both of them together, more or less. And I said, "Oh, I'd love to do that one." And that's what happened. I did the big room, so I had the bigger audience. So that's more me. So sitting now, really, because I'm still not very strong, I'm quite weak. Um, I'm sitting down and I'm quite static. But if you are an extrovert, I think definitely stand and move around. But beware of these, beware of your hands, because we can end up putting them over our face or something like that. And we need to, unless we have full view, if we've just got a view of the top half of a person, which is the most common, then we absolutely need to try and keep our hands out of view. But if we're standing and we've got a bigger view of the person, so we have, to their knees from their head, then you can use your arms, definitely. And of course, we can read much more body language if you're using your arms.
No, I will have to take that on board, because I'm always doing this. Well, I've realised doing actually this summit that I do communicate quite a lot using my hands, so I'm going to have to sit on them when I'm doing these
Or
interviews.
stand up and do it. Then you'll be okay. If you take the camera further back so you've got more of your body, then that would be better for you.
3 tips that people could sort of put into action now when they're making video.
Sure. The first one we've already spoken about, and that is to have both feet firmly on the ground. Now, if you're a lady and you're wearing really heeled shoes and you don't have your full body in view, I would suggest you actually take your shoes off so that you can put your feet firmly on the ground. And that stabilizes you and stops you, from rocking around, really, which I mean, I'm not, I'm a fidgeter. I was always in trouble at school, and it wasn't until I grew up that I realised it was okay, and it meant I was good on stage. So there we go. There's benefits to being dyslexic and to being a fidgeter. So, okay, so that's the first tip, both feet on the ground. We can live for 3 days without water, 3 weeks, sorry, without food. But we can only live for 3 minutes without breath. So your breath is very important. And I would suggest before you go on any video, you do some deep breathing. Just a couple, just 3 maybe, just to bring the breath down. It will open up your lungs and you'll be able to say more. In fact, I'm quite surprised that I haven't stopped in the middle of a sentence to get a breath, because the rest of the week I have. So I'm really, really pleased I'm doing this and proving to myself some things. Right, so feet, breath. And then the third thing you can do is imagine when you sit down that you have a cape on your shoulders. Now you can do this as you walk down to your seat, or you can do it when you're sitting down. If you imagine you have a cape, a very heavy woolen cape on your shoulders, just resting, perhaps you try it, and what that does is it means you have to push your shoulders slightly back and down to stop the cape from falling. If you don't feel it when you're sitting down, then try it walking and you'll definitely get it. So you walk to your seat with that cape on. So what you're doing is expanding your lungs, allowing for enough breath. You're getting your posture more vertical, which is really important. And it makes you more comfortable because you're more relaxed, because you have got more breath, that sort of thing. So how is that for 3 tips? They're very powerful.
Carole, perhaps you can tell me something about your free gift.
Okay, yes, I'd love to. I wrote one of my books is The Future of Body Language. Some of you may have already heard about it. It was way ahead of its time, and its subtitle is How to Perform on Multimedia to Get the Best Results. Now, this book was written 11 years ago, before we were working from home, before we were doing these sorts of calls. And I am prepared to give you the introduction and 2 chapters of that book online if you send me an email. I'm going to give you my email because if you go to the website, I don't answer it. So my email is Carole with an E, Carole, Railton, Railton, @icloud.com. You can find me on Twitter as well if you like, but if you send me a note and quote 33, I will email you back, or whichever way you contact me, actually, a couple of chapters of the book. Obviously, if you want to buy the book, you can mention that as well and I'll give a discount.
I really recommend that you get hold of that book because I've actually purchased it and it's actually a really good read. So all I want to do now is say thank you so much to Carole for coming on here. I know that you've been actually seriously ill, and I really appreciate the fact you've come here to do this talk.